Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Stuff No One Told Us About Weight Loss. Today we are talking about the elephant and the rider. So today's concept is really interesting because it's a really interesting way of trying to describe to clients and even to ourselves to conceptualize the different roles that the brain has. So there's two parts to our brain. There's the subconscious and then the conscious brain. So if we think about the conscious brain is making all the decisions, it's problem solving, it's making those hard choices. And the subconscious brain is everything that we don't really think about much. So it's
our habit brain.
Yeah, it's things like our emotions. It's the habits that we have just on autopilot. Whenever you don't really have to think about something, that's your subconscious brain that's actually driving that. So you can picture what we're talking about here. Imagine there's a human rider on top of an elephant, and he's trying to direct this elephant along a certain path. So you've got three things here. You've got the rider, the elephant, and the path. The rider obviously represents that conscious brain, the thinking brain. Yeah. The elephant represents our subconscious brain. So this is the emotions, this is our habits that we have on autopilot. And the path is the external environment, what's going on around us, what's really shaping what we're doing here.
So most of us, especially when it comes to weight loss, we're trying to sit on top of this elephant with a whip, and the path is overgrown and just you can't even see through.
There's stuff everywhere.
It's just the jungle. And we're trying to sit there, our rational brain is trying to sit there and whip the elephant to go where we want it to go. But the elephant just has no idea where it's supposed to be going. It's trying to follow what we're doing, and eventually we are going to get tired. We can't just whip the elephant all night. We're going to fall asleep at some point. Yeah. And when that happens, the elephant is going to go, well, this is fantastic. I'm going to go off in the direction that I want to go. And when you wake up and your elephant is on a rampage and you're on top of it, there's really nothing you can do to control the elephant in that moment. That is what happens in weight loss when we're often, or really just in general life, when we're acting on autopilot, we're just going through the motions every single day, and then all of a sudden we're trying to follow a diet and we're trying to force ourselves into action and we go, yeah, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. And then we're wondering why it's so hard to stick to or why we keep quitting the diet. And it's really because we're trying to force our elephant brain into submission. And that's just not how it works.
Yeah, we're trying to constrict with, following meal plans, restricting, what sort of foods we're supposed to be eating. And we're really trying to use willpower and white knuckle our way through it.
All the while being stuck in a jungle where our external environment is not set up for success at all. And our brains are battling each other. And it's no wonder that people describe weight loss as like being a battle or being a struggle that's hard. It's hard if you're trying to do it that way.
Yeah. So, what does this look like in a real situation here? And I can sort of shed some light on this because, I work with a few clients who have heard this same story come up again and again and again. They've gone through previously and they've tried to stick to diets and they've tried to stick to, here's my list of good foods, here's my list of bad foods, and it's very much relying on willpower. So they're focusing on telling that rider, hey, you've got to take the elephant over here and you've got to just get there, irrespective of what the elephant wants to do and irrespective of what kind of stuff is in the way on the path. And they're finding it really difficult because then they go to work and they have a really stressful day and their willpower just gets ground down hour after hour after hour. They're trying to make all these decisions. There's biscuits in the tea room. They've got all these cakes for lunch. They're going out on work lunches with other colleagues and they're all having, a chicken parma at the pub and stuff like that. All these choices are thrown in front of them and they're trying to burn through willpower to say, well, that's not on my good food list, so therefore I can't do it. All the while, their elephant brain, so their subconscious brain, is going, hey, this food, we've had this before, it makes us feel good, why can't we have this? And the environment is not conducive to that, obviously, where we've got all of these temptations around us. And at the end of the day, they get home and they come through the door and they're completely exhausted mentally. Yeah. So much so that the rider, their conscious brain, hasn't got any willpower left. And therefore the
rider's
elephant...
well and truly asleep at this point.
Yeah, the elephant just goes on a rampage and they just mindlessly go into the cupboard. They're snacking. They're eating all the food.
Snacking while cooking dinner.
Yep.
The partner says, let's have a bottle of wine.
Yeah.
Then
Let's order takeaway.
Dessert afterwards. Yeah.
It's all happening. Then they come around to the next day and they wake up and their conscious brain takes over again and they go like, what the hell happened?
First of all, they're beating themselves up probably for the fact that they went off plan and were out of control. And so they're just beating themselves down. There's guilt, there's shame. There's just this cocktail of shit going on in their head. And they're going to try and do it all again. They're going to try and grab that whip and whip that elephant into shape. And at this point, the elephant is just thinking, well, this is just bullshit. I didn't sign up for this. You know, the cookies and the cake really feel so much better by now.
That's right.
And it's really just kind of a recipe for disaster.
And what's really funny is, you know, you're probably sitting here thinking about this sort of situation and as we're describing it, you know, imagine a guy standing there whipping an elephant. How does that make you feel when you see that? It doesn't make you feel very good for the elephant, does it? It makes you feel kind of sad for it and go like, you know, I would try and rebel too.
Yeah.
But if we take that same example and say to ourselves, well, that's really what we're doing to our own self every single day.
We're whipping our mind every single day and hoping that we'll then do what we want ourselves to do.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's just not reality.
We're kind of trying to...
And it's also no way to live. Like, do you really want to live every single day where you feel guilt and shame for your actions and then try to beat yourself into submission every single day, thinking that you're not good enough and you have to do it this way and it should be hard? And like, it shouldn't be hard. If you're feeling like that, like, know that there is a better way. Like, that's not how you achieve weight loss and keep the weight off. That it's not even an option.
Yeah.
Because like, the reason we try to lose weight 9 times out of 10 is because we want a better life for ourselves. We want to feel good in our body. We want to enjoy our life. We want to be able to do things with our family and our friends. We want to feel better. And yet we're trying to get to this place where we feel better by making ourselves feel like crap all the time. Yeah. And we think that, well, if we beat ourselves into losing weight, then once we've lost the weight, we'll start feeling better.
Yeah.
But no, that's not how it's going to work. Because if you beat yourself down day after day, when you've lost the weight, you're still going to feel like crap. And you're still going to hate your life if you've built a life that you don't like. You have to build that life where you feel good now in order to feel good when you have lost the weight. And in many cases, in order to actually lose the weight at all, you have to do it in a way where you're being nice to yourself and building a life that feels good along the way. To do that, you really have to get the rider and the elephant working together. And you have to carve out a path that is nice to walk along. Maybe some palm trees on the sides. Maybe some fairy lights along the sides, directing where you're going. You know, it's a nice place to walk.
Yeah, but we've got to sort of come at it from, as I always said, you know, getting the rider and the elephant to work together.
Chuck the whip away and instead start feeding the elephant some nice food.
Well, exactly. Imagine the two scenarios playing out.
Patting its trunk.
Imagine the two scenarios. Like, you've got a rider and elephant who is primarily doing that on fear-based. You know, he's whipping the elephant. He's trying to force it to do this. And on the other hand, you've got someone who has grown up with the elephant and has treated it nicely.
Looking after them.
Is looking after it, has learned how to almost communicate with the elephant. And so the elephant is on board with what the rider says because there's mutual respect there. You know, they both see the value of one another. And then what they're doing is they're shaping the path so that it's more conducive to them both. So it's easier for them both. They're not getting as tired, you know, at the end of the day. The rider's not getting as tired because he's not trying to force the elephant to do things. And
I'm just getting this picture of like this one really nice rider and really happy elephant walking down this like fairy lit path versus this like guy with a whip on top of an elephant hacking its way through the jungle. Yeah. That's like the comparison here.
Yeah. And when you picture it like that, you can obviously see which one's going to be more sustainable long term, because if both parts of the brain are working together, it's going to be much easier for you to not only get the results, but to sustain it for a long period of time. And
you'll probably enjoy the process too.
That's right.
Because like, most of us think that weight loss should be hard and that losing weight should be like challenging and a battle, but that's actually not true. Like, it should be a process that you like, that you actually enjoy.
Yeah.
And like, that should be the norm, really.
It shouldn't always feel like possible. A grind.
No, and if it always does, then you're probably doing it wrong.
Yeah. Like, of course, there's going to be days that you don't feel your absolute best. Like, we'd probably be
but you still, on those days, you still respect yourself and you still can speak to yourself nicely and revert back to your minimum baselines instead of completely quitting and throwing the towel in. That's the difference. Yeah,
like, there's still days that, we have that aren't the best. At the end of the day, like, this is the key differentiator. If you've built solid habits that you do regardless of how you're feeling, that's going to mean that you're going to be able to get you to your goals, in a really sustainable way. Bring that back to the analogy again. That would be like the elephant kind of knows where they're supposed to be going, and maybe the rider feels sick one day, and he doesn't have the energy to guide the elephant. The elephant kind of knows, all right, we've got to go down this path and we'll get there. So they're both like helping each other out.
Yeah.
Your habits are what you can do continuously, and if we've got the right habits at play there, it's going to be much easier for us to do. It's going to take less willpower and it's going to be much more sustainable.
So coming back to the metaphor, there are essentially 3 things that you need to create lasting change. And the first thing is that awareness of where you're going and what you need on the journey. And so in the metaphor of the rider and the elephant, the rider has to know where it's going, but the rider also has to be aware of the elephant's needs along the way. And so on a weight loss journey, that's you having a goal that you've set for yourself, but also being aware of what you need day to day as well.
And the second one is, obviously, you want to treat the elephant with kindness and respect. If you're trying to beat it into submission, it's like anyone, it's only going to take it for so long before it's going to want to rebel and it's going to want to do something in the complete opposite direction.
And you do not want your elephant rebelling while you're sitting on top of it.
No, it's a lot bigger and stronger, and it's got a hell of an advantage. When it decides to do something, you just get out of the way.
Yeah, and so the treating the elephant with kindness and respect is essentially us treating ourselves with kindness and respect, choosing to acknowledge our progress and be proud of the small wins, celebrating small wins, but also setting ourselves up for success by creating plans that are doable and not trying to force ourselves to do these massive actions when we're not ready for it. So part of that is respecting where you are.
Yeah.
And respecting what you're capable of now, while also acknowledging that you can grow and learn. And this is all a process of you improving over time. Oh, and a big part of kindness and respect is listening to your body, and as we know, we lose weight when we listen to our body and eat by our hunger signals, when we eat when we're hungry and we stop when we're satisfied. And that can only happen if you're coming from that place of really wanting to learn and trust your body's signals. So that's really key. And the third one is to build a path. So as we explained already, like, we need to shape that path so that the elephant and the rider can both move forward free of obstacles as much as possible. And in our general day-to-day life, this looks like setting yourself up for success in your environment, making plans for what you're going to eat, setting your journal out where you're going to see it so that you don't forget to do it, scheduling in workouts, whatever it is for you. Like, it's about setting your environment up for success.
I think it's also setting boundaries as well, and that's a big one people don't tend to be aware of, is sometimes there might be people in your life who tend to push their ways onto you. So let's say, for example, you might be out for lunch with friends, and you might have certain friends that always, even though you're trying to maybe in the past you've tried to stick to a diet, they're always pushing food onto you, and they're always saying like, hey, you should eat this. Oh, like, come on, eat this. They're trying to push their agenda onto you. And so what shaping the path could look like for you is getting really honest with yourself and setting yourself boundaries. If there are people in your life that maybe are holding you back a little bit, you might need to try and limit your time with them. Don't jump at every chance to meet up and do things that aren't conducive to the goals that you have. So instead of going for lunch, you might go for a walk with that person instead. It's doing something different.
Another way to do that, like if limiting time with them isn't an option, another way to set a boundary yourself is to pre-plan ahead of time how you're going to respond to them when they do offer food or push food on you, because they're not forcing you to eat. So at the end of the day, you are making that decision for yourself. And so what you can do is, if you know that's going to happen, pre-plan what your response is going to be. Whether you're going to say, no, thank you, I don't want to eat that, or, yeah, sure, I'll take some home and I'll have it later. Whatever you want your response to be, you can pre-plan ahead of time. And that is also setting a boundary, because you're setting a boundary with yourself on how you're going to respond to them, instead of, if you can't say limit your time with them.
Yeah.
There's always a way that you can set a boundary, even if it's not a physical one.
Yeah. So guys, we again unpacked a lot in today's episode. Hopefully that little analogy that we spoke about quite extensively really made sense to you, and it makes it clearer for you to understand as to why the journey thus far might have been a struggle, and then what you need in place of that to make it easier to achieve the goals, but also sustain those goals long term. And see this as a journey for both the rider and the elephant, rather than just trying to force that elephant to do what you want it to do with fear and shame and stuff like that. It's not going to be helpful.
Got to get both of those sides of our brain working together, and that's going to be really the recipe for success.
That's right.
All right.
So guys, thanks for listening as always, and we will see you next time.